And welcome to this week's Mental Health Monday. I am so excited for you because this is a topic near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to pour into you. Today, we are going to talk about know yourself, not just your titles. And why that's important because many of us are stuck with our titles. But let me go back. Welcome to Mental Health Monday, where we dive deeper than traditional talk therapy into your subconscious brain so we can uncover the blocks you are feeling that are getting you or stopping you from getting to the top of your mental health game. So how does that sound? Would you like to get to the top of your mental health game? Good. Personally and professionally, I must say. Well, I am Kanae Quarter, and I am the world's number one financial hypnotherapist specializing in corporate therapy. Well, let's get started talking about today's topic, which is know yourself, not just your titles, because you are not your titles. You are not your duties. You are not your stats. You are not your bank account. You are not your mistakes. And you're definitely not just your accomplishments. You're so much more than that. So, who are you? Maybe you've been asking that question. That's sort of that midlife or existential crisis. These days, the midlife crisis is happening earlier and earlier because millennials are just not like Gen Xers, just not, especially not like baby boomers, where you just took direction and followed it and that was it. No, millennials and what are we calling this? Gen Z are asking why, what, how, really asking deep questions so that it's not just, oh, whatever society says is right for me. It's much more than that. So let me start by emphasizing that I said, who are you? Not what are you? Because that's actually the question we ask or we answer a lot. Even though the question we're asking is who am I? Sometimes we are really answering what am I? Oh, I'm a mother, a father. Um, I am an attorney. I'm a doctor. I am a coach. I am all these titles, right? Or all these duties, the things you do from day to day. You might even go off of your stats. And your stats is like, oh, I have a master's, right? I have a master's. And so maybe that's my title. Even that world's number one financial hypnotherapist, that's a title, that's a stat, that's an accomplishment of mine. But that's not who I am. So ask yourself, who am I? Because I know that by the time people come to see me, they've been asking this question for a little while. And the question is very important. And I would say even timely because more often, especially right now, after we've gone through, the COVID pandemic or whatever you want to call it, it was a financial crisis, it was a health crisis, and for so many, it was a life crisis, a midlife or whatever you want to call it. It was an existential crisis where you had to start thinking about these dualities and the parts of who you are. Now, I want to talk to you about your external self first. Those are your titles, the titles, the things that people expect from you, right? I expect you to be my mom. I expect you to be my sister. I expect you to be my girlfriend, my wife. I expect you to be my husband, my brother, my father. I expect you to be my attorney. I expect you to be my accountant. All those things that people expect you to be. Your duties, what are you doing right now that people expect from you? Your stats, like what are those numbers that maybe you consider yourself tall or short, maybe you consider yourself in shape. That's a title, that's not who you are. That's a stat. You've been to the gym a bunch of times. Maybe you consider yourself a meditator. All of those are not who you are. It's what you do. It's behavior. So your bank account measures how much you got paid for what you do. Your stats are what you've done, and your duties are what you do on a daily basis. Your titles are what people expect from you. Your mistakes are what you're learning. Your accomplishments are what you're proud of. All of these things are important. Absolutely record them, keep them, know them, but don't let them overshadow who you are, who you really truly are, your true authentic self. And then there's these other factors that go into that. There is your birth order. I'm a middle child, and that has a lot to do with the way I show up in the world. But I had to shed that middle child and grow to be who I really wanted to be in the world. Your ethnicity is important. As a Black female, I walk into the room as a Black female, and that means something in today's world, especially in America where I live. Maybe not in every country, but in America where I live, being a Black female says something about me as soon as I walk in the door. But it's not who I am, so I don't have to stay there. Just because that's who I am when I walk in the door doesn't mean that's who they meet. And when I leave, the impression that is left on them, whatever stereotypes or preconceived notions they have about what a Black female is, they will shed that by the time they get to know me and will just know Kene. That's what's important, that they just know you. So not your ethnicity, not your birth order, not your location, right? Where I live in America right now, but that's not who I am. I'm not an American. I live in America. Two different things. So social norms that have gotten imprinted in your brain and in you and in your lifestyle, family contracts and secrets, family habits. You eat the way you eat mainly because of the way you were raised. And maybe you bucked that system and learned a new way of eating, but many families have the same similar habits. So let's go deeper, deeper inside of you, because what's inside of you is truly who you are. It doesn't matter what's happening out in the world. It doesn't matter about all those external things. And I know you're saying, but Kene, it does to me. And I'm saying that's your mental health challenge. That is what's challenging you mentally, because you're trying to live up to all of these titles and expectations and duties and stats and maybe replicate some of the things you've accomplished before. Let that go. It is no longer serving you. And that's why you're under pressure. That's why that you're feeling the stress. That's why you're overwhelmed, mentally drained, emotionally drained. And you feel like you just can't get to the top of your mental health game. Oh, am I right? Well, then what if you focused on internal? Connecting with your vision. Remember last week we talked about your vision, connecting with your vision, connecting with the you that you've been trying to be, that authentic you. When you start to see, how you put yourself out there and you feel a certain way. You've probably heard me call it that icky feeling. You have that icky feeling inside of you. That's how you know it's not you. Because when you have that yummy feeling where you just like you leave a room and you're like, yes, that's because you were being yourself. And that's who they need to know. They don't need to know who they want you to be. They need to know who you are. So connect with your vision. And if you don't know what I mean by that, listen or watch last week's video. So connect with your vision. And your vision is a part of who you are. It's how you show up, how you show who you are. Because you might be having this existential crisis of what you want versus what you think you're allowed to have. You hear me? The existential crisis is what you want versus what you think you're allowed to have. And that can be any two dualities. That can be freedom versus responsibility, right? The responsibility is what you are allowed to have. The freedom, maybe not so much. You might have heard me talk last video about somebody telling me the life that I wanted for myself was a fantasy. And if I believed that, then I would have been believing what she believed what I was allowed to have. But I knew what I wanted. And my desire was much bigger than what she thought I was allowed to have. So I want you to be thinking about, what is it that you want versus what you think you're allowed to have. That gets you closer to your true authentic self. Now, you and your life are made up of your thoughts and your feelings. You are made up of your thoughts and your feelings. What you think about, you bring about, which means you become, or your life becomes, those thoughts that you're thinking. How you feel is what you put out in the world. If you're feeling bad, that's the energy you're putting out in the world. If you're feeling negative, if you're feeling judgmental, that's the feeling you're putting out in the world. And guess what? That's coming back. So if you don't want it back, don't put it out. You hear me? Okay, good. It is what you manifest. What you feel is what you manifest. And the self mastery that we teach in our system, especially to therapists, it is so important that therapists master themselves. And it's so important that leaders master themselves. That's why those are the two people we speak to most often, because if the therapists are pouring into the world, helping the world healed, then they must be healed themselves. If leaders are pouring into the world, then they must be healed themselves. And if they're not, then we are pouring hurt into the next generation, into the next level, and then the next leader that builds up, because they were trained by a hurt person, they are a hurt person, which means that they are still hurting people. Healed people heal people. You've heard me say that before. I'm sure if this is not your first video, then you probably heard me say that before. If it is your first video, that's the first time you heard me say it, but it won't be the last. I say it a lot, because healed people heal people. So if the therapists are healing people, they must be healed in order to do that. The leaders are not necessarily called to heal people, but if they are hurting, then they're going to be hurting others because they have so much influence. So how you feel is what you put out in the world. So I want you to be thinking about how you feel. More importantly, how you want to feel. Because remember, if you don't feel the way you want to, you have control over that. And we're going to, in a couple weeks, be talking about controlling the controllables. And one of those things you control is your feelings. So tell me, how do you want to feel? How do you want to show up in the world? What lights you up? Really, what lights you up? And when your thoughts are pure and positive, how do you feel about yourself? I mean, like really feel. When you're feeling pure and positive, how do you feel about yourself? Not when you let societal norms and societal judgments fall on you, but when you're feeling your complete, like true, authentic self, that pure, positive way that you were born to be. How do you describe yourself? Yeah, I want you to really think about this. So be honest with yourself. What way are you feeling the way you want to feel? Now, really be honest with yourself. It could be self doubt, it could be listening to external forces, it could be confusion, could be distraction. What's in the way of you feeling the way you want to feel every day? So, when you ask yourself, like, remember when I said, when your thoughts are pure and positive, how do you feel about yourself? Okay, you remember I said that, right? You have some idea. So then think about what's in the way of you feeling that way every day. Yeah, think about that truly. And then as you think about that, I want you to be thinking about this field work. This field work is to get you to the top of your mental health game, one step at a time, though. So if you think about it, when you think about how you want to feel every day, this, and you think about what's in the way, this field work is going to help you get there. Help you get there. So ask yourself, how do I want to show up in the world? Right? That is, how do I want to feel? You What is the me that I want to put out for people to connect with? And then how do I want to feel most often? I want to get really clear on that. How do I want to feel most often? Because I'm not saying that you won't ever feel a negative feeling. Please understand that that is a part of life. And you actually need that feeling so that you can really get clarity on where you want to be, who you want to be, how you want to be, all of that be, all of the B stuff. But you need that tension there, that contrast there to say, oh yeah, no, this is not it, this is it. Yes, that's it. So don't be afraid of the negative feeling. Just don't stay there. Don't get stuck there. Get it? Got it. So ask three people you trust, who would they say you are? Like, say, who would you say I am? And just see what they say. Maybe they will have an answer for you that matches up with who you want to be. Maybe they won't. But we'll go back. We'll go into that next time. Next week, we're going to talk more about what we call know your call. And that's like that thing in the way. So I mentioned it today, but I want us to dig deeper into that because it's so very important. And yeah, let's stop right there. So that is your Mental Health Monday for today. How does it feel? Does that help? Do you think you can take this a little bit further? Like, if you've been following us, and if you haven't, I'd say go back and watch some of those videos, because if this is your first video, this is an interesting place to start. It actually is a great place to start, but it really isn't the beginning. It sounds like it's the beginning, but it's not. Because even just the getting to allow yourself to connect with your true authentic self, there are things that need to happen before that. So I want you to go back, watch the other videos. And I also recommend you go back and watch the other videos, because one time just isn't enough. It takes time and repetition to learn these things, especially if you're not in our hypnotherapy program or in our Tame Your Brain program, because that's where you really get that lasting change. Because our system, Tame Your Brain, is a combination between existential talk therapy, hypnotherapy, and financial therapy. And when you mix those two together, or those three together, you get Tame Your Brain therapy. And we especially use it in corporations and companies, mid-sized companies to be more specific, because for conscious leaders who really care about their employees' mental health, Tame Your Brain is a excellent way to make sure that your team is getting to the top of their mental health game, personally and professionally, and they will thank you for it. And they wouldn't want to leave, because they don't want to leave behind that the resources that you are pouring into them. Anyway, we can talk more about that if you visit our website. Let me give you our website. So presidentiallifestyle.com is our website. If you are a therapist and you want more, you want to learn more about Tame Your Brain therapy, then go to presidentiallifestyle.com/train. And we do the Tame Your Brain therapy certification 2, sometimes 3 times a year. And one might be coming up when you're watching this video. Just go ahead and check and see. And if not, you can get into our Conscious Therapist group. Is free, and start there. So thank you so much for being here, listening, or watching all the way to the end. I look forward to seeing you next week. And if you have questions, put them in the comments below, or join our community and you can interact with me and my team directly.